In modern Formula One, races are being decided secretly, without a single overtake. The fastest car finishes second. The driver who led every lap ends up third. And the only thing that changed, a quiet visit to the pit lane. This is not a failure of racing. It is a hidden system. Engineers are exploiting fresh tyre advantages worth 2 seconds a lap, running thousands of real-time simulations, and rewriting the finishing order before the flag even drops. The real battle in Formula One is not happening on track. It starts with something most fans completely overlook: the moment the standings reshuffle and nobody made a pass. A Formula One race can run lap after lap with the order set in stone. Then, without warning, the timing tower flickers. The leader drops to third. A mid-pack car jumps to the podium. No overtakes, no wheel-to-wheel drama, just a sudden reshuffle that leaves even seasoned fans blinking at the screens. It is a contradiction at the heart of modern Formula One. The fastest car does not always win, and the driver who led every lap might vanish from the top spot in the space of a single pit cycle. The timing screen, once a passive scoreboard, becomes the main character, revealing a race that is happening somewhere else entirely. This is the moment that exposes the hidden system beneath the surface. While the cameras chase cars around the circuit, the real battle is unfolding in numbers, gaps, and split-second calculations. A driver dives into the pit lane, disappears from the standings, and when the cycle is done, the order has changed. No one saw a pass, yet the outcome is rewritten. The paradox is clear. Sometimes the move that wins the race is invisible, executed not with a late-breaking lunge, but with a quiet visit to the pit box. The timing tower tells the story, if you know where to look. But what makes this silent reshuffle possible? The answer is buried in the science of airflow, tyre wear, and the value of track position. The real question is not who is fastest, but who controls the hidden levers of the race. And that is where the mystery deepens. Every Formula One car is designed to slice through the air, pressing itself into the track with thousands of pounds of downforce. But that aerodynamic magic comes with a hidden flaw. When a car runs closely behind another, the smooth flow of air is shattered. Turbulent wake, what engineers call dirty air, spills off the leading car, stripping away as much as 20 to 30% of the follower's downforce. Computational fluid dynamics models and wind tunnel tests confirm it. Within one car length, rear wing efficiency drops by nearly a quarter, and front wing grip falls by up to 15%. The numbers are not theoretical. On street circuits like Monaco, the penalty for running in dirty air can reach 0.7 seconds per lap, even before tyre wear accelerates. In real time, this means the chasing driver fights a losing battle, not just against the rival ahead, but against physics itself. Tyre temperatures climb as the car slides more, cornering grip fades, and the window for a clean overtake slams shut. The fastest car on paper can become helpless if trapped in the wrong part of the field. This is why track position is now priceless. Engineers know that a driver in clean air, with undisturbed downforce, can lap up to a second faster than one stuck in the turbulent wake. For the strategists on the pit wall, every calculation starts with a single, urgent question. How can we get our car out of dirty air and into open track? The answer is rarely found on the racing line. It is buried in the timing screens, the pit windows, and the invisible war for clear air. But that is only the beginning, because dirty air does not just slow the car. It changes how tyres behave, and that is where the next layer of strategy begins. Tyre temperature is the silent saboteur in modern Formula One. When a car sits in the turbulent wake of a rival, the penalty is not just aerodynamic, it's thermal. Tyre supplier telemetry from recent seasons lays it bare. Running within a car length of another can raise rear tyre carcass temperatures by nearly 4 degrees Celsius in less than a minute. That heat is not just a number on a dashboard. It pushes the rubber beyond its optimal window, forcing drivers to slide more through corners. The slip angle, the amount the tyre scrubs sideways, increases by 2 to 3 degrees, accelerating wear and robbing the car of grip. Even a brief stint in dirty air can trigger a feedback loop. More heat, more sliding, faster degradation. The data stream from Pirelli's sensors shows how quickly the effect compounds. On high-wear circuits like Bahrain and Barcelona, a driver stuck in traffic can see lap times fade by over half a second as the tires overheat and the tread wears thin. This is why strategists obsess over clear air. The promise of fresh rubber is not just about new grip, it's about escaping the thermal trap, resetting the tire temperature, and unlocking performance that's impossible in the wake of another car. The moment a driver emerges from the pits onto an empty stretch of track, the telemetry tells the story. Temperatures stabilize, slip angle drops, and lap times fall. The undercut's true power begins here, in the invisible battle against heat. A Formula One strategist is not watching the race. They are running numbers. Every lap, the timing screens fill with gaps, predicted deltas, and pit lane losses. The most powerful move in their toolkit is the undercut, and its mechanics are pure arithmetic. Imagine the leader has a 2.2-second gap to the car behind. The pit lane loss for Bahrain is just under 18 seconds, meaning a driver who pits will rejoin deep in the pack unless the timing is perfect. But here is where fresh tires rewrite the script. On a high-wear circuit, a new set of mediums can deliver a first lap gain of up to 1.8 seconds over a rival on worn rubber. If that driver stays out for another lap, the gap shrinks again. Another 1.7 seconds, then 1.6 seconds on the third lap as the new tires start to degrade. Over 3 laps, the cumulative swing can reach 5.4 seconds, enough to erase the leader's advantage and flip track position in a single pit cycle. But the calculation is not just about raw pace. The strategist must factor in the pit window, the gap on track where a car can rejoin without hitting traffic. If the undercutting driver exits behind a slower car, the fresh tire advantage vanishes in a cloud of dirty air. That is why teams estimate the ideal range for an undercut window at 1.5 to 2 seconds, wide enough for the tire delta to work, but narrow enough to avoid traffic. The numbers shift lap by lap, and so does the risk. With every stint, engineers run live simulations, updating their models as tire degradation curves steepen with rising track temperature or a sudden gust of desert sand. One miscalculation, and the move collapses. But when the math lines up, a leader's gap, a pit lane loss, and a clear track ahead, the timing screen tells the story. A car dives into the pits, and the order is quietly rewritten. Bahrain is where the numbers behind pit lane strategy become impossible to ignore. The circuit's abrasive asphalt, baked by desert heat and coated with a fine layer of sand, turns every lap into a slow-motion tire test. Pirelli data from the last 3 seasons shows that even the hardest compounds, C1, C2, and C3, struggle to hold pace much beyond 18 laps on a full fuel load. The soft compound in particular drops off a cliff. After just a handful of laps, lap times can degrade by over 0.15 seconds per lap, and the fall-off steepens with each pass. Tire engineers describe the effect as exponential. 1 lap too many, and the grip simply evaporates. It's not just the surface that amplifies the problem. Sand blown in from the Sakir Desert scours the treads, raising temperatures and sending wear rates even higher. A single stint in Bahrain can see average lap times increase by more than 1.4 seconds over 10 laps, especially if a driver is forced to push in dirty air. The performance gap between a fresh set of mediums and a worn set can reach 1.8 seconds on the outlap alone. That's the kind of delta that turns a routine pit stop into a race-defining move. Pirelli's telemetry from the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix confirms what strategists already know. The circuit doesn't just reward good tire management, it punishes hesitation. Wait too long to pit, and the tires fall out of their window. Pit too early, and the second stint becomes a survival exercise. The environment multiplies every strategic call, turning the pit lane into a pressure cooker where a single lap on the wrong rubber can erase a weekend's work. As one tyre engineer put it, Bahrain isn't just about managing tyres, it is about surviving them. The numbers on the timing screen promise a simple victory. A strategist radios in, confident, "Box this lap. We'll get him on the undercut." The driver dives into the pit lane, bolts on fresh tyres, and rejoins the Spanish Grand Prix at full speed. On paper, Carlos Sainz should have gained half a second per lap on Sergio Perez, enough to leapfrog the Red Bull before the pit cycle is done. But Formula One rarely follows the script. As Sainz exits the pits, he finds himself tucked behind a slower AlphaTauri. The clean air he needs is gone. Instead, turbulent wake floods his car, stripping away grip and driving up tyre temperatures. Lap by lap, the advantage melts away. The data trace from Ferrari's pit wall tells the story. Instead of gaining, Sainz's lap times fade to within a tenth of Perez's worn set. Meanwhile, Perez stays out and finds a pocket of empty track. Each lap in clean air, he claws back 3/10, quietly erasing Sainz's early stop. By the time Perez finally pits, the expected undercut has evaporated. Sainz's fresh tyres, now overheated from running in dirty air, offer no edge. The move that should have rewritten the order leaves everything unchanged. In the strategy room, the lesson is clear. The undercut is never guaranteed. Traffic, tyre degradation, and the invisible dance for clean air can flip a sure thing into a missed chance. Sometimes the boldest move in the pit lane ends up as a warning, not a winning play. In the mind of a Formula One strategist, the true prize isn't always a fresh set of tyres. It's empty space on the track. The language on the pit wall says it all. We're stopping for space. This isn't just a clever turn of phrase. It's the guiding principle behind every major strategy call in the modern era. The goal is to release a car into what is known as the pit window, a gap large enough to rejoin the race without falling into the wake of slower traffic. In that moment, the stopwatch becomes more important than the steering wheel. Engineers run gap search algorithms in real time, scanning the timing screens for slices of clean air where their driver can run unimpeded. The chief strategist's mantra is simple. Give me a gap, and I'll give you a chance. Tyre life matters, but it's the absence of turbulence that unlocks true pace. A car in clean air can lap up to a second faster than one trapped in dirty air, regardless of how fresh the rubber is. This is why some of the boldest pit calls aren't about chasing undercuts, they're about escaping traffic entirely. The focus shifts from fighting for grip to fighting for space. In this hidden game, the driver isn't just racing rivals, they're racing the gaps in the field, the invisible windows that open and close with every lap. The pit lane becomes a gateway, not just to new tyres, but to a different race altogether. Singapore is where the numbers behind pit lane strategy become unforgiving. On this narrow street circuit, a single pit stop costs around 28 seconds, nearly half a minute lost to the entry, stop, and crawl down the pit lane. That figure is not just a guess, it comes straight from the timing sheets and is quoted by engineers as the real-world penalty for ducking into the pits while the race continues at full speed. Every second spent stationary is multiplied by the length and speed limits of the pit lane, turning a simple tyre change into a high-stakes gamble. Unlike tracks where a quick stop can be recovered with a burst of pace, here the math is brutal. A driver must claw back almost 30 seconds on fresh tyres just to break even. That is why, in Singapore, the decision to pit is not just about grip or tyre life. It is about whether the strategy team believes the gain on new rubber can outweigh the enormous time sink of the pit lane. A mistimed stop can trap a driver deep in the pack, with no hope of overtaking on track. The margin for error shrinks, and the consequences of a miscalculation are magnified. On circuits like this, every pit stop is a roll of the dice, and the risk is measured in seconds, that are nearly impossible to recover once lost. The next question is what happens when the pit lane loss shrinks, when a stop is cheap, and the strategic landscape flips upside down. Barcelona flips the script on pit lane strategy. Here, a standard pit stop costs around 20 seconds, almost a third less than Singapore. That smaller penalty transforms the way teams play the game. With a stop this cheap, leaders gain the power to manipulate the pace at the front. By slowing the field, the race leader can shrink the pit window, making it nearly impossible for a rival to find a gap in traffic. Suddenly, the undercut isn't just about tyre life. It's about forcing opponents to pit into dirty air where their fresh rubber offers little advantage. The timing screen becomes a chessboard. Every lap, the leader's pace can trigger a cascade of stops up and down the field. One early move can set off a domino effect, trapping rivals in traffic or burning their tyres in turbulent wake. At circuits like Barcelona, where the pit lane loss is just under 21 seconds, the margin for error is razor thin. A single lap's hesitation or a mistimed call can swing the race, not with an overtake, but with a quiet change in the running order. Proof that the pit lane isn't just a place to change tyres. It's where the real power moves are made. One pit stop can set off a chain reaction that sweeps through the entire field. The moment a frontrunner pulls the trigger, rival teams scramble to cover the move, flooding the pit lane in a wave that rarely lasts more than 3 laps. Engineers watch the timing screens, eyes darting between sector gaps and pit windows, knowing that hesitation means losing not just seconds, but positions. The domino effect is ruthless. As the first car dives in, the next team faces a shrinking margin for error. Wait too long, and a competitor on fresh tyres will leapfrog in the cycle. Jump too soon, and the final stint becomes a tyre management nightmare. Pit crews brace for double-stacked stops, 2 cars arriving nose to tail, mechanics working side by side with no room for mistakes. In this scramble, the pit lane transforms from a place of routine service into a battlefield where milliseconds decide who emerges ahead. The entire order can reshuffle in a heartbeat, not from on-track duels, but from a wave of reactive stops that ripple through the field. The tension is everywhere, in the hurried wheel changes, the overlapping radio calls, and the knowledge that a single misstep will echo through the rest of the race. And just as the dust settles, another wild card looms, the safety car waiting to throw every calculation into chaos. A single yellow flag can erase hours of calculation. When the safety car is deployed, the field bunches up and slows to a crawl, but the pit lane speed limit stays the same. Suddenly, the math that governed every strategy call is thrown out. Under green flag conditions, a pit stop at Abu Dhabi costs about 21 seconds, a gap so large that most drivers lose several positions just by pitting. But as the field snakes behind the safety car, the time loss shrinks to around 9 seconds. That is a 12-second swing, enough to turn a routine stop into a golden ticket. In the closing laps of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, this wildcard changed everything. Teams scrambled to react. Red Bull called Verstappen in for fresh, soft tyres, a move that would have cost him the race under normal conditions. But with the field slowed, he rejoined without falling behind. Mercedes, caught in the crossfire of risk and reward, kept Hamilton out on worn tyres, hoping track position would hold. The entire order was flipped by a single call, a pit stop made cheap by the safety car. In that moment, strategy was not just about tyre life or pit windows. It was about seizing an opportunity that might never come again. The safety car is the ultimate jackpot, a reminder that in Formula One, even the most perfect plan can be rewritten in seconds. Inside the pit wall, strategy unfolds in real time, driven by data and probability. During the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix, McLaren's Atlas system ran hundreds of simulations, tracking tyre wear, stint lengths, and a 12% chance of a safety car in the next 5 laps. The tyre engineer, reading the numbers, calls for an early stop, not because the tyres demand it, but because the model signals a critical window. Every factor, including degradation, traffic, and yellow flag odds, feeds into the decision. The result: a driver gains 1.2 seconds per lap in the closing stages, while rivals miss the moment and fall behind. Monaco magnifies this precision. Overtaking is nearly impossible, and the pit lane becomes the only battleground. In 2022, Red Bull's tyre engineer kept Verstappen out for one more lap, trusting the simulation's forecast. The pit lane loss shrank by 11 seconds under a looming safety car, flipping the order. Here, a spreadsheet and a single call decide the winner. Every Sunday, millions watch drivers chase glory at 200 miles per hour. Yet the difference between victory and defeat now hinges on simulations, tyre compounds, and a strategy team's split-second call. In today's Formula One, the fastest driver does not always win. The sharpest mind does. The real race is silent and invisible, and it is happening right now, long before the checkered flag falls. What do you think? Is this evolution or a loss? Because in Formula One, the real race isn't always on track. Subscribe if you want to understand what actually decides it.